3 in the morning, you're wide awake, your heart is beating a little faster than it should. Your mind starts running through everything you didn't finish yesterday, every worry you've been pushing aside, every conversation that didn't go right. And you've probably told yourself the same thing 100 times. It's stress. Just stress. But what if it isn't? What if the real reason you're waking up night after night at the exact same time has nothing to do with your thoughts, your worries, or your emotional state, and everything to do with a hormone your body is silently flooding into your bloodstream while you sleep? Because research from the National Institute on Aging has confirmed something that fundamentally changes the way we need to think about nighttime awakening in people over 60. Millions of seniors who believe they have a sleep problem or an anxiety problem actually have a cortisol problem. And the difference between those two diagnoses changes everything about how you should be treating it. I'm Dr. James, and this channel exists to bring you the latest evidence-based research on senior health in a way that's actually practical for adults over 60. We cut through the noise, skip the jargon, and give you information you can act on starting today. If that's what you've been looking for, please subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a video. Now let's get into what's really happening when cortisol spikes in the middle of the night, why this problem targets seniors specifically, and the step-by-step plan you can start using this week to finally sleep through until morning. Let's begin with the most important thing. Cortisol is not your enemy. Your body makes it on purpose. It's a hormone produced by your adrenal glands, two small triangle-shaped glands that sit right on top of your kidneys. Every single morning before you even open your eyes, your cortisol surges. It's what pulls you out of sleep. It elevates your blood pressure slightly, activates your immune system, and gets your brain ready to function. Researchers call this the cortisol awakening response, and it's one of the most powerful signals in your entire biology. Without it, getting out of bed would feel nearly impossible. The problem isn't cortisol itself. The problem is timing. In a healthy body, cortisol follows a very specific daily rhythm. It peaks in the early morning, around 6 to 8 in the morning, and then gradually declines all day long. By late evening, it should be at its lowest point. By midnight, it should be nearly undetectable in your bloodstream. That is the normal pattern. But in a significant percentage of adults over 60, that rhythm breaks down. Cortisol stops declining at night. Instead, it begins to rise again in the early morning hours, somewhere between 1 and 4 in the morning. And when it spikes, your body interprets that as a signal to wake up. That is not stress waking you up. That is cortisol. This matters enormously because if you are treating a cortisol problem with stress management techniques, you will get partial results at best. You might feel calmer during the day, which is genuinely useful, but you will still wake at 3 in the morning because the underlying hormonal dysfunction hasn't been touched. You need to know what's driving the cortisol problem to fix the sleep problem. Now, I want to talk about something that most people, and even many doctors, do not fully connect to this issue. It's the single biggest driver of nighttime cortisol spikes in seniors over 60, and it has to do with blood sugar. Here is how it works. While you sleep, your body continues burning through glucose for energy. In younger, metabolically healthy adults, blood sugar stays relatively stable throughout the night. But in older adults, especially those with any degree of insulin resistance, which research suggests affects more than 60% of people over the age of 65, blood sugar can drop into a danger zone sometime in the middle of the night. When that happens, your body treats it as an emergency. It doesn't wake you up by sending a polite signal. It floods your system with cortisol to force your liver to release stored sugar and bring your blood glucose back up rapidly. You wake up, heart beating slightly harder than normal, mind immediately active, sometimes hungry, sometimes anxious for no clear reason you can identify, sometimes just mysteriously, frustratingly alert. And because those symptoms feel like anxiety, because they feel like your mind is running with worries, you assume the problem is emotional. You assume it's stress. But the cortisol was the cause, not the consequence. Your body created that anxious, alert feeling. The feeling didn't create the cortisol. A 2021 study published in the journal Sleep Medicine followed adults with chronic nighttime awakening and measured their cortisol levels at multiple points through the night using salivary cortisol testing. What the researchers found was striking. In participants who consistently woke between 2 and 4 in the morning, The majority showed a measurable cortisol spike in the hour before their eyes opened. Their cortisol was rising before they woke up. The awakening wasn't triggering the hormone response. The hormone response was triggering the awakening. I want you to pause and think about that, because it completely reframes what's happening in your body. Comment below right now and tell me, do you wake up at roughly the same time every night, or does it vary? That pattern matters. Waking at a consistent time, 3 in the morning, 3:15, same window every night, is a cortisol signature. Random, unpredictable waking often has different causes. I read every comment, and your answer helps me understand what our community is dealing with. Let me tell you about Dorothy, who was 71 when her daughter brought her in because she hadn't slept through the night in almost 3 years. Dorothy had tried everything. Her primary care doctor had given her a low-dose sleep aid, which helped her fall asleep initially, but did nothing to stop her from waking at 2:30 in the morning. She had done therapy. She had tried breathing exercises. She was not a particularly anxious person by nature, which confused her most of all. She didn't have a lot of stress. She didn't have unresolved emotional issues keeping her awake. She just woke up every single night around 2:30, wide awake and alert. We ran a 4-point salivary cortisol test, which measures cortisol at 4 specific times across a 24-hour period. Her morning cortisol was actually low, not high. Her afternoon cortisol was low as well, but her late-night measurement was significantly elevated. Her cortisol rhythm had essentially flipped. It was supposed to be high in the morning and low at night. Hers was doing the opposite. We also found that her fasting blood sugar was in the pre-diabetic range, and she had been eating dinner early, around 5 o'clock, with nothing afterward before bed. By 2:30 in the morning, that was nearly 10 hours without food. Her blood sugar was dropping, triggering a cortisol emergency response and waking her up like an internal alarm. Within 6 weeks of the protocol I'm going to share with you, Dorothy was sleeping until 5:30, sometimes 6 in the morning, consistently. 3 years of broken sleep resolved in 6 weeks by treating the cortisol problem rather than the stress that wasn't really there. But blood sugar is not the only driver of nighttime cortisol elevation in seniors. I want to walk you through 3 other major contributors, because in my experience, most people over 60 have more than one thing working against them simultaneously. The first is chronic inflammation. This is one of the most underappreciated drivers of cortisol dysregulation, and it affects an enormous number of older adults. Your immune system and your adrenal glands are in constant communication with each other. When inflammation is elevated, whether from arthritis, cardiovascular disease, a sedentary lifestyle, or a diet high in processed foods, your immune system signals the adrenals to produce more cortisol throughout the day. That excess production disrupts the evening decline. Your body never properly shuts off the cortisol faucet because the inflammatory signals keep ordering more. A 2020 study in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology found that seniors with elevated levels of C-reactive protein, which is a standard marker for systemic inflammation, were more than twice as likely to show disrupted cortisol rhythms compared to those with low inflammation levels. Twice as likely. Inflammation isn't just damaging your heart and joints. It is actively disrupting your sleep on a hormonal level every single night. The second major contributor is evening light exposure. This one does not get nearly enough attention in conversations about sleep in older adults. Cortisol and melatonin have what researchers call an inverse relationship. When one rises, the other falls. Evening light exposure, particularly the blue wavelengths emitted by televisions, tablets, and smartphones, suppresses melatonin production. And when melatonin fails to rise properly in the evening, cortisol has less competition and remains elevated longer into the night. Researchers at Harvard Medical School found that evening blue light exposure can delay your body's hormonal timing by as much as 3 hours. If your cortisol is supposed to begin declining at 8 in the evening, but you're watching television until 10:30, it may not start declining until midnight, and it may not fully suppress until 3 or 4 in the morning. That's a structural hormonal problem caused by a correctable habit. The third driver, and this is the one that surprises people most, is alcohol. Many seniors use a glass of wine or a beer in the evening to wind down, and it genuinely does help them fall asleep faster. Alcohol has real sedative properties in the short term. But here is what is happening several hours later while you sleep. Alcohol is metabolized relatively quickly, and as your body processes it, blood sugar first rises and then drops sharply. That drop, happening around 2 or 3 in the morning as the alcohol fully clears your system, triggers exactly the cortisol response we've been discussing. The wine that helped you fall asleep at 10 is one of the reasons you're wide awake at 3. Research published in Alcoholism. Clinical and experimental research confirmed that even moderate evening alcohol consumption significantly disrupted cortisol rhythms and increased nighttime awakenings compared to alcohol-free evenings. Even one drink showed measurable effects. I know that is not welcome news for many people, but it is the truth, and you deserve to have it clearly. Now here is what I have not told you yet, and this may be the most important piece of the entire conversation. There is a specific, evidence-backed nutrient that has a direct and measurable effect on nighttime cortisol regulation. Most seniors have never heard of it, and before I tell you what it is, you need to understand one more thing about the biology of why seniors are especially vulnerable to this problem. Your body has a feedback system for cortisol called the HPA axis, which stands for hypothalamic pituitary adrenal. Think of it as a thermostat. The hypothalamus in your brain constantly monitors cortisol levels in your bloodstream. When cortisol gets too high, it sends a signal to turn production down. When cortisol drops too low, it sends a signal to turn production up. In young, healthy adults, this thermostat is highly sensitive and very accurate. But research has consistently shown that as we age, this feedback loop becomes less responsive. The thermostat gets stuck. Cortisol stays elevated because the brain is no longer sending a strong enough shutdown signal at the right time. A 2019 study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism confirmed that HPA axis sensitivity declines significantly after age 60, and that this decline is directly associated with elevated nighttime cortisol and measurably worse sleep quality in older adults. This is not about willpower. This is biology. Your brain's ability to regulate this hormone diminishes with age, and it needs support to do its job properly. That is where phosphatidylserine comes in. Phosphatidylserine is a type of fat molecule that makes up a significant portion of your brain's cell membranes. It plays a critical role in cellular communication, including the specific signaling pathway that tells your adrenal glands to stop producing cortisol. When phosphatidylserine levels are adequate, the HPA axis feedback loop functions efficiently. When levels decline, as they commonly do in older adults due to dietary changes and reduced absorption, the brake on cortisol production becomes sluggish. Multiple randomized controlled trials have examined this connection. A study published in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition found that 400 milligrams daily of phosphatidylserine significantly blunted cortisol responses to physiological stress. A second study focused specifically on elderly participants with disrupted sleep found that phosphatidylserine supplementation improved sleep quality, reduced nighttime awakenings, and improved how participants felt the morning after. This is not a sedative. It is not a sleeping pill. It is a nutrient that helps your brain do what it is supposed to do naturally, which is tell your cortisol to stand down for the night. And phosphatidylserine works even better when combined with a second supplement you've likely heard of but may not be using correctly for this purpose: magnesium. Magnesium is involved in more than 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body, including several that directly govern cortisol regulation and sleep architecture. Think of magnesium as the off switch that cortisol is the on switch for. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest counterpart to the fight-or-flight state that cortisol creates. Research from the University of Edinburgh found that magnesium deficiency was strongly associated with elevated nighttime cortisol and significantly impaired sleep quality. In older adults, magnesium absorption decreases with age, and many common medications including diuretics, proton pump inhibitors, and certain blood pressure medications deplete magnesium further. Studies estimate that over 60% of adults over 65 are not getting adequate magnesium from their diet alone. But here is the critical point that most people miss. The form of magnesium matters enormously. Magnesium oxide, the cheapest and most widely available form in drugstores, has very poor absorption. Your body barely uses it. Magnesium glycinate, on the other hand, is bound to the amino acid glycine. Glycine itself has calming and sleep-promoting properties. The glycinate form absorbs efficiently and has a direct calming effect on the nervous system that makes it specifically useful for nighttime cortisol suppression. If you have been taking magnesium and not noticing results, the form is almost certainly why. Share this video with someone who tells you they wake up every night and can't figure out why. Most people assume it's just part of getting older. For most of them, it isn't, and they need to know there are answers. Here is exactly what to do. Write this down or save this video so you can come back to it. First, address your evening eating. If you eat dinner before 6 in the evening and don't eat again before bed, you are almost certainly setting up a blood sugar drop in the early hours of the morning. The solution is a small pre-sleep snack that contains both protein and fat, not carbohydrates alone. Good options include 1 tablespoon of almond butter, a small handful of walnuts, a hard-boiled egg, or 2 ounces of cheese. You are not eating a meal. You are providing your body enough fuel to maintain stable blood sugar for the hours it needs to get through until morning. Eat this snack approximately 30 to 45 minutes before you go to sleep. Second, address the light exposure. The goal is 90 minutes of screen-free time before bed. If that feels genuinely difficult given your routine, purchase blue light blocking glasses, which are available at any pharmacy or on Amazon for under $20, and begin wearing them at 8 in the evening. They filter the wavelengths most responsible for melatonin suppression and can restore a meaningful portion of your evening hormonal rhythm, even if you continue watching some television. Third, if you drink alcohol in the evenings, try eliminating it completely for 4 weeks and observe what happens to your sleep pattern. 4 weeks. If full elimination isn't realistic, shift your drinking to dinner time rather than after dinner, and limit yourself to 1 drink. Giving your body more time to metabolize alcohol before the vulnerable 2 to 4 in the morning window makes a measurable difference. Now for the supplements. Take 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate every night, 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Do not substitute magnesium oxide, magnesium citrate, or any other form for this specific purpose. The word glycinate must appear on the label. You can find this at CVS, Walgreens, Target, Walmart, or on Amazon. Look for products carrying a USP-verified seal, NSF certified, or Informed Sport certification. These third-party verified products guarantee that what's on the label is actually in the bottle. For phosphatidylserine, take 300 milligrams in the evening, either with dinner or shortly after. This supplement is typically derived from sunflower lecithin or soy lecithin, and either source is effective. Brands specializing in brain health or cognitive support tend to carry it. Search for phosphatidylserine 300 mg on Amazon and prioritize third-party tested options with substantial verified reviews. If you also experience difficulty winding down in the evenings, a racing mind when you lie down, or a sense of being wired despite feeling tired, consider adding ashwagandha in the KSM-66 form, which is the most clinically studied extract available. A 2019 meta-analysis in the journal Medicine found that KSM-66 ashwagandha at 300 milligrams twice daily significantly reduced morning cortisol levels and improved sleep quality compared to placebo in adults experiencing chronic disrupted sleep. Take 300 milligrams with breakfast and 300 milligrams with dinner. Note that ashwagandha can interact with thyroid medications and immunosuppressants, so always disclose it to your physician if you take either of those. Give this complete protocol a minimum of 4 weeks before drawing conclusions, with 8 weeks being the ideal window to see the full effect. Keep a simple sleep diary, just a brief morning note recording what time you woke, whether you went back to sleep, and how you feel. That record will be valuable for your own tracking and for any conversation with your doctor. Speaking of your doctor, please ask about ordering a 4-point salivary cortisol test. A single blood cortisol level drawn at a random time during a routine office visit tells you almost nothing about your nighttime rhythm. The 4-point salivary test, measuring cortisol at morning, midday, evening, and late night, gives you the actual picture of what your cortisol is doing across the full 24-hour cycle. Functional medicine physicians and naturopathic doctors routinely order this test. Many conventional physicians can also order it if you request it specifically. It is the diagnostic tool that makes the difference between guessing and knowing. If you are currently taking any corticosteroid medications such as prednisone, or if you have been diagnosed with an adrenal condition such as Addison's disease or Cushing's syndrome, please do not modify any part of your supplement protocol without first speaking with your prescribing physician. These medications and conditions affect cortisol production directly, and any supplementation strategy needs to be coordinated carefully with your medical team. Here is the one essential thing I want you to carry away from everything we have covered today. If you are waking up in the early morning hours, feeling suddenly alert, heart beating slightly harder than normal, mind immediately active, and this is happening consistently around the same time each night, that is a cortisol signature, not a stress signature, not an inevitable feature of aging. It is a cortisol rhythm problem with identifiable, addressable causes. You do not have to accept broken sleep as a permanent part of the rest of your life. Right now in the comments, tell me this. Comment the word cortisol if this video describes your experience and you are going to try the protocol. Comment questions if you are experiencing this, but are not sure whether cortisol is the cause and want me to do a follow-up video going deeper, and comment your age along with how long you have been waking at night, because I read every comment in this community and I want to understand what our members are going through. Please subscribe if you found this valuable, because next week I am covering something that surprises nearly everyone who hears it. A common over-the-counter medication that tens of millions of seniors use daily for heartburn and acid reflux, which recent research has now confirmed significantly depletes magnesium and vitamin B12, and which may be directly contributing to both disrupted sleep and memory concerns. That is a video you will not want to miss. I'm Dr. James. Sleep well and take good care of yourself tonight.